I've got bad news, guys. Look at what happened to my house. It's gone.
How do you take a show about a talking sponge and make people care about it? That was the challenge SpongeBob's team had to consider during most of the first season. Between its announcement in December 1998 and its quote-unquote official premiere in July 1999, there was a lot of skepticism on the internet due to how dumb SpongeBob SquarePants sounded. Even Nickelodeon wasn't sure about it. The same day they announced they'd ordered 100 episodes of Cat Dog, they closed off by saying, "Oh yeah, and SpongeBob's getting 6. Thank you for your time." And boy did that order pay off. But SpongeBob was such a weird concept that it needed time to prove itself, time to get us invested in these characters and this world Stephen Hillenburg had crafted out of his fascination with ocean life. Whether or not you like the modern episodes, if SpongeBob started out with stuff like Mustard O' Mine and Stormy Weather, it wouldn't have made it to the 21st century. Sluggish as they may seem today, they needed episodes like Bubble Stand and Jellyfishing to ease you into this world, and the two leads' offbeat but childlike activities. There's a few adventures tucked away in there like pizza delivery, but the reason season 1 is the most distinct of the pre-movie era is because it's more laid back, wanting to make you feel comfortable, just giving you a taste of what this once strange character lineup goes through. So then comes an episode like Home Sweet Pineapple, which throws SpongeBob a whole life-ruining crisis and expects us to feel bad for him. A talking sponge that lives in a pineapple. And it worked. It worked super well. It was the feature presentation of its own DVD 6 years after airing, a rarity for an episode not hyped up by the network. So, if you were a viewer in 1999 and this was your first episode, what could pull you in? What makes you care about SpongeBob? Well, first of all, the nematodes. They're a funny way of personifying a random sea-dwelling animal and making it clear they're enough of a menace to instigate a plot.
Oh, dang nematodes!
And instigate they do as they feast on SpongeBob's home, causing it to shrink. And here's another great thing about the show. It's weird. It's strange how not only is the house shrinking, but all of SpongeBob and Gary's belongings, yet they don't shrink, so it's a brief race to escape. Decades on, people like me on that side of the fandom will pick apart the logic, but it's not like this world's supposed to have 100 set rules. As long as it's funny or can meaningfully affect the characters, it can work. And that's probably the thing that sold most people on the show, the character dynamics. SpongeBob calls Squidward, bothering him while he's sleeping, and Patrick notices something's going on and prepares to help SpongeBob out.
Is it time already to ruin Squid's day? Hey, SpongeBob, don't start without me!
So far, none of them are in the same room, but their collective dynamic is effortlessly displayed. And then when SpongeBob's house is finally finished off, we feel bad for SpongeBob. There are stakes to this story, surreal as it is, and you want to see SpongeBob get a new house, as moving back in with his parents is conveyed as a sign of defeat.
I guess I'll have to move back with my mom and dad.
Wait a minute, no you don't.
There's a bit of holdover from the last Nicktoon Stephen Hillenburg and his team worked on, Rocko's Modern Life. That had a lot of plots about adulting, and some characters were left homeless a few times. A big reason Rocko remains so popular is that if you watched it as an adult, you got it immediately. If you watched it as a kid, you appreciate it more as you get older. It's a similar story with many SpongeBob episodes. Why am I talking about the writing so much, specifically the fundamental building blocks for a good story? Well, because this is a great example of all of them, and you wouldn't want me to spoil the jokes. Look at all these bits and tell me you'd want me to just say, this is funny. It's like if I reviewed trees and said, oh man, look at this branch, and that one too. Those are definitely branches. The kids who grew up on SpongeBob know these jokes like the back of their hand. That's how good they are. And the writers had some practice. While this was the 11th episode in packaging order, it's actually the 25th to be produced. Season 1's production codes are a tangled web. And you know, for an episode all taking place on one street, they kept the animation pretty interesting. It's set across the span of just over a day, so you get some nice sunrise and evening scenes to spruce up the mood. Much of the action takes place on the front lawn of Conch Street, but you've got this fun building montage to make the area feel more action-packed. And that's just going into location. You've got some great faces and reactions everywhere you look. And when Patrick has night terrors and accidentally attacks SpongeBob with his rock, Look at how many attacked poses they whip up for him. They could have just settled on one and kept cutting back to it looking more bruised, but no, they took the effort to be creative and make it more interesting to watch. And it shows off how versatile SpongeBob's design is that every pose, as outlandish as they get, are still natural and recognizable. But why am I focused so much on this scene in particular? Maybe because I've got a cell of it. Yep, you're looking at my first animation cell. I got it online for the low price of $660. And the cool thing is, this frame is partly obscured in the final show, so I guess they switched out the cell of the Rock for a less intrusive one. The background isn't right, it's a replica like a lot of cell backgrounds are, but it's the right location at least. I'm super happy to have this. This scene is a classic. It's awesome to have on a wall. It's awesome to see a wacky SpongeBob face that you can't fully see in the show. I could have paid 660 grand for this. This is priceless to me as a fan. But back to the review. While this episode's great, you could have potential issues with the pacing in the second act. To be fair, it's dominated by two slow nighttime sequences that build up to big laughs, but given SpongeBob's 12 hours from moving away from Bikini Bottom, it could have done with more urgency or something. But the ending leaves too much of a positive impression for these feelings to linger. It's got heart in it on top of humor, with the seed the house had turned back into at the start now being activated by the power of love and growing back immediately. It's the sort of plot so brilliantly conveyed, so heartfelt but at the same time so silly, that there's no way you can do it again. Home Sweet Rubble is an episode from Season 8, made nearly 13 years later, that follows a similar story. SpongeBob's house is in danger of being destroyed, but here it's just rotting, so after spending a while trying to prevent it from becoming uninhabitable, SpongeBob's friends come around and are happy to rebuild it, but they all rebuild their own section of the house with their own tastes in mind. A fun way to take the story for sure, and everyone's in character enough for it to feel alright, but it never tries to hide the fact it's a blatant reiteration. It even ends with the pineapple coming back at the last second, in way more of a cop-out might I add.
Well, it isn't exactly home sweet pineapple, but I suppose it could be much worse.
They even admit it! They even admit it! But I guess it shows how influential Home Sweet Pineapple was on our nostalgia for this interesting Pineapple House concept. How ever since its sentimental value was unlocked, it's been an unmistakable part of the show's identity. From this day onward, we could truly get on board with a pineapple under the sea.
Ah, Squidward! Isn't this great? I'm back forever!
Forever?